Something unusual just happened in Washington last week, and almost nobody saw it coming. In a move that sent quite shockwaves through Silicon Valley, Donald Trump declared Anthropic a potential national security risk and moved to halt its use across US government agencies. Not regulate it, not review it, stop using it. That's a big line to draw. Anthropic isn't some fringe AI startup operating out of a garage. It's one of the most heavily funded artificial intelligence companies in the world. Backed by Amazon, funded by Google, integrated into major cloud infrastructure. Its model, Claude, has been praised for being cautious, thoughtful, and built around safety principles. So how does a company that markets itself as the responsible AI lab suddenly become a security concern? This story isn't just about one chatbot. It's about how deeply artificial intelligence has already embedded itself into the machinery of power. Government agencies have been experimenting with AI tools for drafting, summarizing, analyzing vast document archives, the kind of work that quietly shapes policy before the public ever sees it. When these tools are powered by private companies, the lines between public authority and corporate infrastructure start to blur. And that's where this gets interesting. Is this a genuine national security precaution, a political message about controlling advanced AI, or the opening move in a much bigger fight over who gets to steer America's most powerful technology? Because make no mistake, AI isn't just another software upgrade, it's infrastructure. It influences how information is processed, how risks are framed, how decisions are shaped. If one system becomes deeply embedded inside federal workflows, its design philosophy matters more than most people realize. Calling Anthropic dangerous forces a deeper question. Dangerous to whom and in what way? Is this about safety, sovereignty, market competition, or simply the reality that AI has become too powerful to operate without political confrontation? In this video, we're going to unpack what really happened, who Anthropic is, why Washington might be nervous, and whether this is the start of a broader AI reckoning. Because if one of the world's leading AI labs can be labeled a risk overnight, that tells us something important. The AI era has officially entered politics. The political temperature around AI spiked overnight when Donald Trump declared Anthropic a potential national security risk and moved to halt its use across US agencies. The decision reportedly followed internal reviews about how federal departments were integrating large language models into policy drafting, intelligence summaries, and procurement analysis. What made this different from previous AI debates was the tone. Instead of talking about regulation or guardrails, the language reportedly focused on exposure, dependency, and influence. That shift matters. It suggests concern not just about the technology itself, but about how embedded it has become inside government workflows. There were also whispers that certain agencies had begun pilot programs using Claude for internal knowledge management, especially in research-heavy departments. Cutting that off abruptly signals something deeper than routine oversight. Whether this was a precautionary move or a strategic political statement, it instantly reframed Anthropic from a Silicon Valley lab into a geopolitical talking point. Anthropic isn't just another AI startup chasing chatbots. Founded by former OpenAI researchers, the company positioned itself as a safety-first AI lab focused on building models aligned with human values. Its flagship model, Claude, gained traction for being cautious, measured, and surprisingly useful for enterprise documentation and research tasks. What makes Anthropic particularly influential is its backing. Amazon committed billions into the company and integrated Claude into AWS infrastructure, giving it immediate enterprise distribution. Google also invested heavily, tying Anthropic into one of the largest cloud ecosystems in the world. In practical terms, that means Claude wasn't floating in isolation. It was being woven into corporate systems, compliance workflows, and potentially federal cloud contracts. When a company with that level of infrastructure support becomes restricted at the government level, it's not just about a chatbot. It touches cloud services, procurement agreements, and AI development standards. That's why this matters far beyond headlines. Governments rarely fear tools, they fear leverage. Advanced AI systems like Claude can summarize classified style briefs, simulate strategic scenarios, and analyze vast document archives faster than any human team. That capability alone creates questions about oversight. there have already been examples of AI-generated reports being used internally in various institutions to accelerate policy drafting. While efficient, that introduces a grey area. If a model influences how a policy memo is framed, who is accountable for its framing? Another concern reportedly circulating in Washington is dependency risk. If agencies begin relying on a privately controlled AI system for daily operations, they are indirectly tying institutional workflows to a commercial entity's updates and policies. A model upgrade, data handling shift, or corporate restructuring could ripple through government processes. It's less about rogue AI and more about concentration of influence. Once an algorithm quietly shapes briefing notes or risk assessments, its design philosophy matters in ways that aren't immediately visible. Whenever a technology company is singled out, motives become part of the story. Is this a genuine security assessment or part of a broader strategy to reshape the AI landscape? Trump has consistently framed emerging technologies through a sovereignty lens, emphasizing domestic control and reducing perceived external influence. If Anthropic's partnerships with global cloud providers became politically sensitive, that context could matter. At the same time, AI companies are increasingly intertwined with defense contracts and federal modernization programs. Blocking one player could shift billions in potential contracts towards others, as OpenAI recently saw to their advantage. That makes the move economically significant. There's also timing to consider. AI policy is becoming a campaign issue, with narratives forming around who protects American technological dominance. Declaring a leading AI lab a risk sends a strong signal. Whether precautionary or tactical, the optics are powerful. A major AI firm abruptly placed under scrutiny, and Washington drawing a visible line in the sand. Underneath the surface, this debate circles around control. Who ultimately steers the most advanced AI systems? Corporations, regulators, or elected officials? Anthropic's constitutional AI approach was designed to embed guiding principles directly into its models. That sounds reassuring, but it also raises philosophical questions. Whose constitution? Whose values? Who updates them? As models become more capable, they don't just answer questions, they shape decisions. If an AI consistently frames risk in a certain way or emphasizes specific trade-offs, it subtly influences human judgment. Now multiply that across federal agencies and you start to see why control matters. But there's also the infrastructure layer. If advanced AI runs on specific cloud partnerships and proprietary chips, access becomes strategic. Control isn't just about code. It's about compute, distribution, and update cycles. The deeper anxiety may not be that Anthropic is dangerous, but that no single private entity should sit that close to the nerve center of government intelligence and analysis. Anthropic built its reputation on caution. Claude became known for refusing risky prompts more often than competitors and for taking a more measured tone in complex discussions. Enterprises appreciated that reliability. Unlike some AI companies that aggressively pursued consumer features, Anthropic leaned heavily into enterprise integration and long context capabilities. Claude models could process extremely long documents, which made them attractive for legal review, compliance analysis, and policy research. That practical utility may have accelerated adoption inside institutions that deal with massive document flows. In contrast, other AI systems were still being tested, mainly for productivity tools and creative outputs. But there's also a cultural difference. Anthropic's founders often speak openly about existential AI risk and long-term alignment challenges. That framing sometimes clashes with more commercially driven narratives. So, when scrutiny landed, it wasn't just about performance metrics. It was about philosophy, positioning, and where Anthropic sits in the broader AI power structure. Could AI models influence government decisions? The idea sounds dramatic, but influence doesn't require autonomy. If an analyst uses AI to draft a briefing summary, the model's wording can subtly frame urgency, risk, or priority. In corporate environments, there have already been anecdotes of executives relying on AI-generated strategy drafts before refining them. Government isn't immune to that efficiency pull. Time pressure encourages shortcuts. Imagine an AI summarizing trade data, defense assessments, or economic projections. Even slight variations in emphasis can affect how a policymaker interprets the landscape. Now that's not a conspiracy, it's workflow reality. Tools shape output. Calculators changed accounting, spreadsheets changed finance. AI changes language-driven analysis. The concern then isn't that Claude or any model is secretly directing policy. It's more that reliance without full transparency about model behavior could create blind spots. Influence in this context is incremental, not dramatic, but incremental shifts can compound. Zoom out, and this looks less like a single company issue and more like an infrastructure struggle. AI is rapidly becoming foundational, like electricity or telecommunications. Whoever controls the core systems gains leverage. Cloud providers, chip manufacturers, model developers, and federal agencies are now deeply interconnected. Amazon's investment in Anthropic, for example, ties model access to AWS compute. That linkage makes AI development inseparable from cloud dominance. If the federal government limits certain AI vendors, it reshapes procurement pathways. It could push agencies towards in-house models, defense-linked labs, or alternative private partners. The US has also been vocal about maintaining leadership in AI against global competitors. Infrastructure decisions today ripple outward into economic competitiveness tomorrow. So, the debate isn't just, is Anthropic dangerous? It's about defining the architecture of AI. Who builds it? Who hosts it? And who ultimately decides how it evolves? Federal contracts are lucrative and symbolic. Winning government trust often signals long-term stability for tech firms. Losing it can raise investor questions. If Anthropic is effectively sidelined from US agency use, competitors may quietly benefit. Cloud-aligned AI providers could see expanded pilot programs. Defense-focused AI startups might position themselves as safer alternatives. Investors watch these signals closely. When government access shifts, market perception follows. In previous tech cycles, regulatory headwinds have temporarily slowed companies that seemed unstoppable. There's also a morale factor. Engineers working on public sector integrations may suddenly find projects paused. That creates internal uncertainty and strategic recalibration. Silicon Valley thrives on momentum. A public rebuke from Washington interrupts that momentum, even if temporarily. Whether this becomes a long-term exclusion or a short-lived pause will determine how deeply it reshapes the competitive landscape. At the heart of it, dangerous is a loaded word. Anthropic's public positioning has emphasized safety, alignment, and responsible scaling. There's no public evidence of rogue behavior or intentional misuse. However, a system can be powerful simply because of how widely it's adopted and how deeply it integrates into workflows. If a single AI platform becomes embedded across research, analysis, and drafting functions, it accumulates quiet influence. History shows that transformative technologies often face backlash at moments of rapid integration. The printing press, railroads, the internet, all triggered institutional anxiety before becoming normalized. Perhaps this is another version of that tension. Not necessarily a story about danger in the dramatic sense, but about institutions grappling with speed. Whether Anthropic proves risky or simply influential, one thing is clear. AI is no longer just a tech story, it's a governance story. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy hearing about stories in tech and you want to support the channel, the best thing you can do is to like and subscribe. See you for the next one.